It's finally happened, guys. I have finally checked out Kamen Rider Geats. I didn't have a lot of interest in checking it out at first, even though the premise sounded interesting to me. But recently I got kind of bit by a little bit of a toku bug, so I decided to check it out. And there was a week hiatus this most recent week, so it was kind of the perfect opportunity to catch up. As I wound up not just watching the first episode to check it out, I binged all 9, and I really enjoyed it. And that's my thoughts on it. Until next time. Just kidding. I do the fake I'm gonna sign out thing way too often. But anyway, let's go ahead and talk about it. This is going to be a review, but it's gonna kind of be a more overall thoughts review on the series. I'm gonna go into some detail, but it's not gonna be like I'm gonna review each episode individually like I did with Dino Fury. Just kind of a more overall review of my thoughts and impressions on the first 9 episodes. So let's geets to it. Thank you. Anyway, overall, I really liked it. It's not perfect. I feel that there's some strange sort of pacing issues to me. Sometimes things feel a little bit off. Sometimes it feels like one long episode that gets chopped into different episodes. Like individual episodes won't feel like, oh, this was a beginning, middle, and end episode. I think that's by nature of the story, which isn't a huge deal breaker, but sometimes there's something off about the pacing. But in general, the show's got a really good energy. The premise is really unique. It made for a really easy watch. You know, it's got kind of a slick style to the combat and the format that I really appreciate. That reminded me a little bit of when I first watched 01, when I was really enjoying it at the beginning. There's just sort of slick style of it in that regard. Just superficially, real quick, I really do dig the suits, especially the main suit. I'm a sucker for white toku suits, and this one looks really cool. I love the fox vibe. I like the way the gimmick is used. You know, it's a little bit samey to things we've gotten before, but it's mixed up enough. I think they do a good job of disguising the toyetic sales approach of toku. One of the things that weighs me down often in the early Rider series, like in the early episodes, is like you can really tell they're having to shove in these ability forms to keep up with the toy schedule. But with this, I think because of the way it's structured with the game and stuff, it's like folded into it really nicely, and I really appreciate that. And I also dig suits like Punk Jack and the Panda one that are like a classic toku suit where I'm like, this is so stupid and awesome. I also really like the beast power he just got. And also, the belt voice, awesome. I love it. Cool and to the point. Like, the belts have been getting way too sing-songy in recent years, which is getting annoying, but also it's nice to just take a break from that so you have some variety. So when we get to sing-songy belts again, it'll feel fresh instead of like it was just last Tuesday. So it's nice to have a really simple, cool-sounding belt voice again. I really appreciate that. Not to mention, dude, it gets so annoying when you get to like deep in the season and you have like 4 or 5 riders transforming next to each other and it's like all the belts shouting over each other, like, ah, ah, ah. That's toku in a nutshell. I also really just like the format of this idea of this rider competition. It's not the riders necessarily fighting each other directly. In fact, when the riders fight each other, they're like, stop! That's exactly what they say, just to stop, but it doesn't. But anyway, I mean, obviously we're going to be having rider conflict throughout the whole series, probably riders fighting each other, and we've had it. Even though it says, stop, they still fight each other. But it's nice that it's something different than like a battle royale. And the premise of them like trying to save the world through these competitions is really interesting. And I think what I like the most about it is it offers the opportunity to have both a different structure that makes the show feel fresh, but also the ability to sort of go over some classic Rider hallmarks in a different way. Like, this gives you a reason for the Riders to be at odds and in conflict than just an idiotic misunderstanding that will often happen, because the Riders like to fight each other way more than they do the villains, and I appreciate that. And I feel like there's also some story of the week elements with the reoccurring Riders, like with the gambling guy, or the guy that Keiwa interviewed with, who his story about his son. Those felt kind of like story of the week things, but wrapped up in somebody just joining the game randomly, and I think that's really cool. Not that I'm like thirsting for story of the week filler characters that I could give a shirt about, but I think it's kind of cool. It's a different way of doing it than, oh my god, this guy got turned into a monster and here's his story that no one gives a fork about. But instead, it's, hey, this guy entered the game as a rider for one battle. No one gives a fork about his story, but at least it's different. That sounded more cynical, but you know what I mean. I like that it's different. I also like how different the villain structure is. In a way, thinking about this, it feels like Dom Brothers and Geats swapped the way Riders and Sentai do villains. Where, like, the villains, I mean, obviously there's going to be some shady stuff going on with the corporation. Like, they're totes involved with aliens, right? They probably invented him, or they're, like, Facebook friends with him or something. But regardless, in terms of the monsters they fight, they feel like Sentai monsters. They're just faceless dudes to blow up. And then you have Dom Brothers, who's got kind of the humanoid villains that you could totally take Sonoy and friends and drop them in a Rider show and you would believe them as Rider antagonists. And not to mention the story of the week, like, oh my god, someone smashed my pizza, now I'm a monster. It's actually hilarious how little the Dawn brothers care about resolving the emotional welfare of the monsters of the week. Like, Rider's like setting them up with a support group, sorting out their family issues, and like, Dawn brothers does not care about, like, this dude is going through turmoil, turned into a monster, the monster's blowing up, you're still going through your turmoil. Who cares what happens to you? Anyway, that was a side note. I just happened to think about that. But regardless, I think it's unique to have that set up for Rider. There's obviously a lot of questions about, like, how this all works. I mean, if this organization has the ability to, like, reset reality to a degree and to give them powers, like, why not just outfit the best possible players with the best possible gear? And, like, why are you going about it this way? I mean, on the one hand, you don't want to question it too much for now because it's giving us unique premise. But on the other, it'd be a wasted opportunity not to do something unique with it. I think there's obviously going to be a deeper reason behind it that I hope that they reveal. I don't think that it's just weird straight up to have this set up. I mean, yeah, it's interesting, but it raises so many questions. And I think that's the idea because Rider always raises so many questions. I definitely hope the answer is a little bit more of a gray area. Like, I don't want it to just be straight up that the organization, like, created the aliens and they're using it to test people. Like, I hope that it's more complicated than that. Like, maybe this has just been happening so long and every time they go through it, it's like a time loop and they're trying to get data. I just don't want the answer to be that simple, but obviously there's going to be something going on. But even if it does raise questions and some logic questions, the premise brings about some really unique aspects that makes the show, quite honestly, feel like a breath of fresh air in such a long-running series. Character-wise, I also really do enjoy the characters. I think it's so refreshing to have a douchebag Rider again. That sounds so weird, to want your main character to be a jerk. But we've gone through so many specialist boy, goody two-shoes Riders. It's so nice to have this Rider type again. And it's not even like this is my favorite character type. It's just Rider has really had this protagonist that's been cut from the same cloth for so many years. It's nice to get back to this character type. And I hope in the future they alternate it a little bit more. And not, so I don't want to have like a jerk Rider 5 years in a row, just like I don't want a specialist boy character 5 years in a row. Vary it up, guys. But it's really nice to have that character. I like the way they're handling it so far, using the Fox trickster element, but then also showing that he's an a-hole but not 100% a dick, where he, like, you know, I think he paid for that kid's treatment and stuff. I think they're able to do this because they have the Kawa character, which is almost more of our POV character, except for now when he's gone, but he'll be back. But you know what I mean, like in the first episodes, he feels more like your classic Kamen Rider. He feels more like our classic Rider protagonist in terms of him being more of a goody good. I hate to say it like that because he's not. He's more like just a normal good guy. And he's not like a specialist boy character where he says word salad and everyone worships him. You get to have kind of starting out the series with that more point of view good guy character, which I think allows them to have the douchey character. It's kind of like how in Pokemon they would use the new female protagonist to explain the show to the new audience so they could keep Ash's development going. And that's why he got screwed over in Unova, because he had to be the new audience POV character. I'm still mad about that. Pikachu lost to that Snivy! I like how I'm like doing mini reviews of Dawn Brothers and Best Wishes in this. So, I like the characters, I like that setup, I like Kawa so far, I like that dynamic, very reminiscent of Kabuto with Kendo and Kagami, I like that. You know, Buffa is pretty cool so far. I definitely feel like he's going to end up being BFFs with the main character by the end. He's kind of that classic rogue Rider that's going to come around and be team main character. But I like him so far. I like his motivation of why he's doing it with his friend being basically burned by the game and wanting to burn the whole thing down. And come on, Puke, let's burn this motherfucker down! One side note, I did think it was funny, like in the first episode when you meet Panda Rider and him, and they de-transform. I forgot what Buffa was going to look like. And the dude that was like the original Panda looked way more like he fit in the Buffa suit. Like just his build and look, he looked like that badass. And then Buffa de-transforms and he's like, "Hey guy, I'm gonna get you." You know, Naga or whatever her name is, the girl Rider, is pretty good so far too. Not like she's my favorite or anything, but I was a little bit worried that when we found out she was gonna be an influencer character, she was gonna be kind of one of those always on characters like Papu Pipu Poo 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 Head and just be like a cartoon. And I like that she actually feels like a character. In fact, that's what they do a good job of that overall. They have their moments where they're a little bit toku caricatures, but for the most part, I think all of the main characters are relatively grounded in their motivations, and I dig that, and I think they do a solid job with that so far. Overall, though, I've really been digging the show. I had a blast watching it. Like, again, it has some sort of classic Rider things in it, but it feels like a breath of fresh air. You know I liked it when I was tempted to order the belt. Like, Toku is really good at pushing that button you have when you're a kid where you see something on TV and you're like, oh, I gotta own that to, like, prove that I like the show somehow. I don't know. Toku's really good at that, but I thought about ordering the belt hardcore. So I really enjoyed it. I'm probably going to try to keep up with it. I don't know what that means for coverage. I don't foresee reviewing it weekly, but I could do more check-ins. And if I keep up with it, you could probably expect a more timely series review, but that's early talk because we're on episode 10. But let me know what you guys would like to see if you want to see me try to cover it more, because if I'm able to keep up with it, then I'm going to try to cover it more. I think I can hopefully find a balance between covering it and it not feeling like, oh, I gotta watch the episode for the review this week. So that way I can enjoy it and then still bring some coverage. But I guess just let me know if you want to see me try to cover this semi-regularly. Maybe do check-ins at like milestones, like when a new rider debuts or a new form debuts, and I can use that as a platform to talk about everything that's happened since the last time I covered it. Just let me know, like I said. If I had to give a score to my overall feelings on the series so far, I would give it a 4 out of 5 for this first 9-episode stretch. Perfect time to leave off, too, as we kind of bookended with the second Grand Prix ending and mysteries revealed when we found out that the masked guy was the Alfred dude, and that Punk Jack was this guy that I'm like, am I supposed to remember you? Anyway, let me know what your guys' thoughts are on the series in the comments, and also, like I said, let me know how you would like to see me cover it in the comments. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for our videos. Dawson Rider, signing out.